All right, now this big guy is named Omar, and he is the kind of prodigy, if you will, of a young coach who I helped out quite a bit when he himself was throwing. And Omar, we're going to take a look at here, discus thrower. We're going to take a look at some of this in real time. So the first thing I notice out of the back is we really don't have a lot of separation. He's kind of carrying that discus around at the same time, or even with his hip. So there's not a whole lot of separation. It's the hand is coming around kind of parallel or even with the hip. Parallel is not the right word, but even with the hip. See, his whole body kind of turns together. There's not a lot of separation. You also start to see that he is over rotating a little bit and he's not getting deep enough into that circle. And I think because of that, we've got a lot of weight on our left foot at the end. It's a line drive throw, and there's a lot of shifting onto the left. So let's take a look at this in kind of step by step, see what's going on. So you can see here, does a good job of getting separation in the back, but something's going on where he's losing separation as he comes through. You can see there's some good separation. Discus is behind the hip. As he comes around, yeah, he's not doing a good enough job getting weight onto that left foot. So you can see here he's kind of losing separation at this point. The upper body is just kind of catching up to the lower body. And there's really not a lot of shifting onto that left. You can tell if he picked up his right foot right now, he'd fall over. He's really not balanced on that left foot. And you can see here he's starting to kind of look and kind of peek down the throwing area. It's kind of taking that left shoulder and trying to kind of dive into the circle, trying to push that left shoulder into the circle. And what I really would like to see is I'd like to see him shift his weight over his left foot. If he can shift more weight over his foot, think about getting the middle of his chest, think about getting his sternum over the left foot, pushing his weight over the left. See how he's starting to dive into the circle, starting to look into the circle? So his right foot's not even off the ground yet, and he's already thinking about going down the middle. Now at this point, the discus and the hip are even. You know, the right foot needs to come off so much earlier. This is another thing that we talked about in the underneath this channel. There's the faults and corrections videos that are live and getting updated every Tuesday. They'll be out later on today. That video that we talked about, I think it was the last video or the video before that, where we talk about getting in that crisscross ballet position. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can see the left foot is already starting to point down the middle. The left knee is pointing down the middle. The left hand's going down the middle. His eyes are looking down the middle. Everything has left early except for the right foot. Now that the right foot is actually coming off the ground, you can see what's going on here. He's leaning in the middle. The right foot's nowhere near the position that it needs to be in to drive. And we've lost separation because of it. Everything else went first. Remember, that left arm's going to pull the right arm around. So if the left arm, the left knee, the left toe, the head, the left shoulder, if they're all thinking left, or if they're all thinking run, 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 go through the circle, and there's not a whole lot of pivot on the left, shift on the left, so I can pick my right foot up, then this is what's going to happen. You lose separation, and you've got this tiny little step with the right. See that tiny little step? This is not a long position. He's not left. We don't have that long right sweep. It turns into this tiny little ballet position. Okay? So it's going to affect how far he can drive. It's going to affect where he's driving. And it's going to get it so that he's not landing in an ideal position. Ideally, I'd like to see him in the middle of the circle, just inside the front half of the circle. So instead of his toe being here, I'd like his toe to be more down here. Okay? The other thing that starts to happen is, again, he's looking at where he's going to throw. You can already see he's starting to turn his head. He's thinking about throwing. He's not thinking about going through the circle. The left arm is short. The left arm at this point should be nice and long. And then he doesn't turn his right foot in the middle. He drops the heel. He doesn't turn his right foot, so what's going to happen? All his weight's going to fall on the left. Remember, to pivot on a foot, you need to have weight on that foot. It's like walking. In order to take a step, you need to shift weight onto that foot or onto that side. So when you take a step, you shift and step, shift and step, shift and step. This is, if you want to pivot, you've got to keep your weight on the foot. So keep your weight on the foot and pivot. Keep your weight on the foot and pivot. They go hand in hand. If you're not pivoting, what's going to happen? All the weight's going to fall on the left. And when you combine that with the fact that he led with his left side out of the back, that he was looking with his head out of the back, and that he didn't have good separation out of the back, that's what it's going to look like in the front. So it just turns into this sort of lunging throw without any push from that right foot. This ideally is probably where I want the right foot to land. You can see it's that jumping, lunging, kind of forward. Even now, he's not taking his eyes off the discus. He's still watching the thing. So we've got, I think, here a classic example of an athlete who's trying to throw way too far instead of someone trying to throw correctly and having it go far. So I always tell people, if you try to throw far, if you try to just muscle it and if you try to just rush it, it's not going to go anywhere. But if you throw it correctly, it's going to go somewhere. So don't try to throw far. Try to throw correctly, and it will go far. Okay, so what do we work on first? Number one, we've got to get on that left side. So this idea of spinning down the middle, kind of lifting up, peeking at where he's going to go, standing up in the back, that has to stop. We need to stay low, and we need to shift our weight onto our left foot. So stay low and shift. Don't just spin. Okay, stay low. Put a lot more weight on the left foot so that you can pivot on the left foot and get that right leg to sweep out nice and long. Okay, once we get to the middle, bang, right foot hits in the middle, do not drop the heel. Keep the weight on top of the right foot and pivot on the ball of the right foot. Keep the left arm nice and long, hold that left arm back, continue to pivot on the right foot. So continue to move this, don't drop the heel. Okay, stay up on the ball of the right foot, do not drop the heel. And if you can do that, keep the weight back, now the tendency won't be to fall on the left. And it's going to correct a lot of what's happening in that power position. It's going to get him to keep his weight back. It's going to get the right foot rotated more toward the front. He's going to have more weight on the right. And it's just going to make for a cleaner, more powerful finish and a more powerful position in that standing throw part of the full throw. All right. So that's what I got for you today. On this one here, it starts in the back. So work on getting over the left foot, shift weight, pivot on the left. And then in the middle, keep your weight on the right, pivot on the right. So it's all about weight shifting. Shift your weight on the left so you can pivot on the left. Keep your weight on the right so you can pivot on the right. And then turn everything down the middle and throw. Don't look at where you're going to throw and throw. It's not like throwing a football or throwing a dodgeball at somebody's head. You want to keep your weight back, resist that urge to look at where you're going, and try to throw with proper form, and it will go far. If you try to throw far, it might not go anywhere. But if you try to throw correctly, it's going to go somewhere. All right? So that's what I got on this one here. If anybody has any questions, please make sure to leave them in the comments section down below. And make sure to check out the description box below for information on our overnight throws camp that happens at the end of June.